As my witness, Pip, no man ever loved a boy any more than I love you. Pip!
Jack Klugman today on Pop Goes the Culture. Hi, I'm David Levin, and welcome to another colloquial episode of Pop Goes the Culture from the archives. Today we have a great show, the conclusion of my conversation with the late, great Jack Klugman. Today we'll talk about his show Quincy, and Jack will talk about Rod Serling and the 4 episodes he appeared in on the Twilight Zone.
The greatest night of my life, and Tony gave it to me. And then in the audience were 2 women I'd worked with, Helen Hayes and Sylvia Sidney. Between them, there were about 195 years. And Sylvia turned to Helen Hayes and she said, Helen, have you ever been in a theater where you've seen so much love go from the audience to the stage and back? And Helen Hayes said, I've never seen so much love in the theater. It was the greatest night of my life. And when I would get a big laugh, though Tony never broke out of the character, his eyes would go get him. He'd say, no competition, always go, I knew you could do it. He was so supportive. And then I get goosebumps now. And I went to the party and he introduced me as the gutsiest SOB that ever lived. And I said, no, I'm the luckiest SOB that ever lived. And I've been acting ever since. I did Sunshine Boys with him. I did one, we met on a horse with him. We did a terrible play in Florida. And we did television together. And my admiration for him, my love for him just grew.
What an amazing gift.
Oh, God. He gave me back my best friend. He gave me back acting. He must have known what it would feel like to lose your voice. He was on my side. That's wonderful.
Wow. There but for the grace of God, huh?
No, that's right. And he evidently knew it, but he would have done it anyway. But he never thought that he was doing anything. It had to be completely altruistic for him to accept thanks. I started thanking him. He said, no, I got profit out of it. I said, no, look what you did for me. I said, you gotta take my thanks. It reminded me of that episode when I saved his life in The Odd Couple. And he'd thank me continually. And then I wake up and there'd be that picture with him blimp. Thank you, looking at me. And I say, stop it. And then that wonderful line, that ad lib that Harvey Miller gave us. It wasn't ad lib. And so I said, I said, have some chicken. And then choke, but then you're choking on the chicken, then he'll save your life, and it'll be even, then it'll stop. So I did that, and we had no button on it, but he gave me the chicken, and I said, I choked, and he helped me. I said, I choked on the bone, and then he said, no, there were no bones in that chicken. So there was nothing. Harvey Miller came up after 2 days and said, no bones? How did it walk? Well, when he gave me that line, I fell about. It was so funny. And that's what I loved about doing this show. The laughs, the lines they came up with. I think Jerry Belson came up with a line that was not funny, but touching. It was, we were doing one camera, I think. And then we're playing poker. And they accused me of stealing $50. And I didn't steal it. And we couldn't find it. So they all left, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I come out looking for the $50, and I can't find it. And I had no punch, no button. So I called Jerry. I said, I got to have a button here. I don't know what it is. He said, I'll call you back. So I called him back in 5 minutes. He said, try this. I'm going to sell all my friends and buy a dog. Well, I was so taken with that line. I almost cried. So about 30 seconds of pause, he said, I'll write you another line. I said, no, the insecurity of comedy writers is like, I said, I love the line. I'm digesting it. But that's what they'll tell you. He saw my one-man show. He said, he's a very cynical guy, but he's the best. I love him. He said, it's too sweet, Jack. Jesus. You love everybody. Everybody loves you. You're going to give your audience diabetes. I said, well, that's how I feel. And he gave me the funniest line about Brett. Because she taught me more about acting than anybody. She really knew about acting. She was wonderful. She taught me how to act, really. And I once played a punch drunk fighter, and she said, put cotton in your ear. And really listen. So to hear, I had to turn my head. It was not arbitrary, it was an organic thing. And I knew what she meant. Symbolically, I knew I wouldn't have done that. And so behavior started to happen, and it was like, I'd been acting for a number of years, but I began to see what she meant. And it was a live show, so he gave me the line. He said, then I married and put cotton in both my ears, which was a good line he gave me. But she was at the Actors Studio. She was a member of the Actors Studio for years, prestigious, when Randall was there, and Marilyn Monroe and everything. And I said, but guys would get up and do scenes from Henry V. They'd take like 2 hours, 4 hours to feel a penny, to see what the qualities were in the penny. So I said, what have you learned? What is the most important thing you've learned at the studio? She said, to get an aisle seat, which I loved.
When you guys came back together to do the Odd Couple Together Again movie, what was that like?
We didn't do a movie, we did a reunion.
A reunion.
We were on. I thought it was a pretty good show, although we should have followed Tony. Tony had a better idea. He wanted to be like in a marathon, and he cheated, took a subway, and then they caught him. And I said, no, I wanted to deal with my cancer. And how to cheat, it was not as funny as his idea. But we were on, opposite. Barbara Walters, when she had on that woman that cut off her husband's, everybody was watching. They got like, the odds of that happening would have been just terrible. You have a better shot of hitting the lotto than hitting that, than getting a rating on that show. So that was the reason that we didn't do well.
I watched it, though.
In the reruns, it was pretty good, but it was a good show. It was a good show. It was a solid show.
Kids are getting married.
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
It was a good show. But I was with my girlfriend. Was I married? I don't know. The girl that I was with is the girl I go with. I've been going with her 18 years, Peggy Crosby. Chairman.
Was it?
No, Blue Dawn. Blue Dawn, yeah. I once went to ask people at Paramount, and I said, when Bing Crosby died, I said, look, I'm going to give you an idea. You're going to want to make me president of Paramount. I don't want to be president, but you're going to love this idea. I said, Bing Crosby's dead. Now, we're not a team, but we're thought of as the Odd Couple. Let's do the Odd Couple road pictures. Odd Couple goes. They said, not only did they not make me president, they said no. I said, why? They said, what are you going to make, 4 million, 5 million? We want to make another Star Trek. We want to make 200 million. So that was, then Gary and I were doing a show about, we were traveling down south and we get caught by the police, and then two funny people did it. Richard Pryor, and they did it called The Jerks or something, I don't know. Anyway, they made hundreds of millions of dollars. Stir Crazy. Made $100 million. I thought he wouldn't pay the fine. I said, pay the fine. No. Next week we'd go up to the judge. We spent another week in jail. And then he would go through the same things, naive. I said, no, don't take the candy.
Two great characters.
Oh, it was wonderful.
I gotta tell you, the first time I saw Quincy, and you had that what later became the opening of the show, where you just whip off the cover from the corpse, was maybe the funniest show open ever. And it was hilarious.
That I think was Glenn Larson, who co-created the show. That was his idea. I was proud of that show. Really, really proud of that show. I had more fun doing Odd Couple, but that show, I always wanted to be a muckraker. I was a great fan of Upton Sinclair and his series. I wanted to clean up the slaughterhouses and the coal mines and all the things that he did. Larry Budd was my hero as well as his. And that's what I wanted to do. And I saw when they sent me the pilot that this guy was two heroes in one. He's a cop and a doctor. And he's very powerful. I mean, no matter what anybody says, if the coroner says it's a murder, you must investigate it as a murder, or as a suicide, you have to do it as he says. I mean, nobody can override him. So I thought, wow, that's a good idea. But so he said, I had a meeting with him. He said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. But he didn't. he kept doing cops and robbers shows, so I quit. And they sued me and everything. I said, I don't care. I don't want to do this junk anymore. So they said, what do you want? I said, I want him out. They said, but he's the co-creator. And he was, I said, I don't care. Send him me. Somebody was very shrewd. He got a lot of money to leave, a lot of money, more than I did. And a year later, he was at a party, came up to me. I said, then why do you come up to me? You know, I don't like what you stand for. And he said, stay well, you're making me rich. He said, he was but he was then very hot. He did that show in Hawaii that made was on for 100 years. Magnum, yeah. He was a lot of successful series he did. So,
who took over?
But I loved, so anyway, when I took over, we started to do shows about that had a social conscience, anything that was unfair, we brought out. I took stole a lot of stuff from 60 Minutes. I stole from the headlines and papers. And I had my brother who came out with me, who was a failure as a businessman all his life. He said, he had cancer. I said, come out and work for me. He said, well, I do. I said, just get an office, but that difference. So he came to me a month later. He said, I have a story. I have an idea for a story for Quincy. I said, Pete, take the money. No, he said, I don't want to participate. And he gave me a show. The first show they gave me got me before a congressional committee, got Ronald Reagan to sign into law the orphan drug bill, and was so hot it was the talk of Washington for 3 months. Then he gave me, there were 5 kids in the newspaper on the horses, happy, but they were handicapped kids, very happy. And this equestrian center was being closed. He said, there's a Quincy. I said, what are you talking about, Pete? He said, look how happy they are. It's going to be taken away from them. Do some research. So I went down there and I found that for $25,000, this guy would let me shoot there, which was cheap. But he could save the equestrian center. So he did, and I did a wonderful show. We did 17 of my brother's ideas in 3 years. So he had lived his life as a businessman, but he really was an artist. He was so happy the last 3 years of his life. And I was glad because he was a failure all the time. He was not really a nice guy. But he turned into a woman, and they would say to me, why aren't you more like your brother? I said, Jesus. But he was wonderful. I loved doing that show. I got a letter from a woman saying, a lot of these, thank you for the show about sudden infant death syndrome. My daughter would have died because I wouldn't have known what to do. Well, that was better than any ratings or any money in the world. And I got a lot of letters like that.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
Oh.
You did one I remember very clearly. There was a Holocaust denier.
Yeah.
That was a really good episode.
Yeah.
That was really awesome.
I tried to get Lee Strasberg for that. He almost came, but he wanted to talk to me first. I guess he wanted to, and I was a little scared. I studied with him for a couple of years. And I didn't want him to come because I told him, I always felt I minimized the importance of television when it came to guys like Lee Strasberg or like Sinatra. Loved the show. Told me he loved the show. And I know I could have gotten him to, who would think there's Frank Sinatra to do a Quincy? It would never enter my mind. But there were a lot of people. But I had Jose Ferrer did a couple of my shows. I loved him. He was the greatest storyteller in the world. And Jason Robards, the George Scott's wife, I forget her name. Wonderful actress. Wonderful actress. And I used to use, I knew, this is terrible.
Colleen Dewhurst.
Yeah, Colleen Dewhurst. She was wonderful. And I got her with Time Daly. I used Time Daly as much as I could. I used her once, twice in the year. She said, you can't use her twice in the year. I said, I'll use her 50 times a year if she'll come. She was so wonderful. And every time an important show would come, I say, see if Time Daly's available. She was just wonderful. That I had about 4 Quincy's that she did that were just sensational. One where she was dying, she was just great. And one where she and Colleen Dewhurst housed some kids with Down syndrome, and people were complaining that they were in the neighborhood. Well, that show will bring a tear to your eye. And we did some good shows. I was very proud of that show.
You got to reprise the character on Diagnosis Murder, didn't you?
Not really that way. I am now, but this is not understanding. CBS put up $70,000 for a reunion script. I worked with Sam Egan on this show. I have a 2-hour script that is so beautiful. It would save 1,000 lives a year. It's funny. It's a reunion. It's got everybody that was there. It's the best Quincy ever. And I can't get it done. I had important people go try to get it done. And so I thought maybe I'd stepped on people's toes at Universal, which I had. But it's changed hands about 4 times. I can't get it done. I don't know whether because of the oil companies or what. It indicts the oil companies because we have about 2,200,000 feet of pipe underneath the grounds in America that have oil and gas, and they're rotting. And there was an incident in Bellingham, Washington, where I talked to the senator from 3 kids were playing, and one was at a charcoal lighter, and he threw it at another kid and it went in the creek and it blew up. The 3 kids died. It killed every fish there. It went 10,000 feet in the air. And that's what's happening. But the oil companies would rather pay a $50 million fine than start to dig it up. There were 3 kids. The way I ended the way the show ends, there were 4 kids riding in a Jeep. This has happened in Texas. And they're smoking and they lit a cigarette and threw a match into a creek. They were going over a bridge, blew up, and they died. It would save hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lives a year. But it's funny, and it's got nostalgia. I can't get it done. And look, CSI, all those shows are popular.
Exactly.
I can't get it done. I don't understand it. I tried to buy the title. I couldn't even buy it. And they got it instead. It's just sitting there. Maybe the show, maybe
I hope so. Yeah. The shows you never get to see, you know, the reunions that haven't happened yet.
Oh, this is a good reunion. It's really good with poker playing. It's funny as hell.
Some of my favorite things that you've ever done were the Twilight Zone. You were on some classic Twilight Zone episodes. Just...
Well, nobody's done more than Burgess Meredith and I. We did 4-piece. I was doing Gypsy. In fact, I got Gypsy through doing Rod Serling Warehouse 90 with Art Carney. And I'm doing Gypsy, and Rod calls me. He said, I just wrote a Twilight Zone for you. I said, I have a 2-year contract. I can't get out of it. He said, I did research. You have a 2-week vacation coming in January. You come out. There are certain playwrights whose words you like to roll around in your mouth. Arthur Miller, Clifford Odets. They just have a bite to them. Well, Rod Serling is in that category. He just love to roll those words around. They're cryptic. They mean something. They're not just, they don't flow out. They bite out. You have to bite on them. And I love saying his words because I'm a depression baby. And like Garfield would have loved his words, John Garfield. Because there were kinds of... So I said, yeah, and I went out and I did the trumpet player. Well, I learned from the guy in the Gypsy band how to finger. So I learned, so I had a lot of confidence in it, and I bought a trumpet and I would finger it all the time. And I really liked that show. It was a good show. And then I did a pool player, which I loved, with Jonathan Winters. He was crazy. Johnny's the funniest man that ever lived. And whenever he'd go up, he'd forget a line. He'd do a half-hour improvisation of Grandma Fricket or the baseball player. And I would love it. They said, Johnny, we have to come back to work. And he would just take his... He was wonderful. I loved him.
You did the one with Billy Mumi?
Yeah, well, that was... No one had ever heard of Vietnam. That was in the 60s, early 60s. And he mentioned Vietnam. I said, what is that? Where is that? And he told me what it was. I had no idea. But, you know, that my kid was dying in Vietnam. It was a wonderful show. Because I realize when I see it now, it's rare, but when I see it, I realize, geez, I didn't know I had that kind of behavior at the beginning when I threw the money on that. I didn't know I had done that. I was very pleased with that show. I was pleased with all the shows, except I didn't like one. I did one show where I was an astronaut. I didn't like that one. Freddie Beers was in it, and Ross Martin. And Ross, they cried all the time. I said, Ross, it's like acting with Joan Crawford. Stop it. But he was... I didn't care for that one too much, but I liked the other 3. That was an hour show.
That was well, none of the hour ones were really that inspired. I think even Serling himself said that it wasn't his favorite thing when they expanded.
But he was a hands-on. I mean, he read every script he cast. He was the healthiest looking guy I ever saw. I was so shocked when he died. He wrote outdoors, and he had this wonderful bronze tan all the time, impeccably dressed because he was small. And these short guys, like jockeys, they were always wonderfully dressed. And he was dressed that way. He always dressed well. And he had been a fighter. He was in really good health. And I was really shocked when he died.
Great writers.
Oh, you think of patterns and stuff that he had written before he became Requiem for Heavyweight. God, he was wonderful. And the words were just... I watched Jack Palance saying those words, and it's so wonderful. Jack is so good in that.
Yeah, we've covered as much as I can think of covering.
Okay.
So,
and I never stopped talking.
You were great.
Yes, what time it is, I'll tell you how the clock was made.
Jack Klugman passed away at age 90 in 2012, leaving a legacy of great work and a legion of fans who loved him. If you haven't already done so, I urge you to find a copy of his book, Tony and Me. That's it for now. I'm David Levin, and you can follow Pop Goes the Culture on Twitter at PopGoCulture, Facebook, or email me at popgoestheculturetv@gmail.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.